The prison cell was cold. The metal walls were covered in rust and water dripped from the ceiling. In the corner of the room, a small girl sat quietly. Her name was Lyra. Her arms were thin, her skin pale, and her eyes stared at the floor. Around, her wrists and ankles were metal cuffs connected to the wall by thick chains. The guards called her helpless. "She's just a weak alien girl," they laughed. "She can't even speak. What a waste of space," but none of them knew the truth. Lyra had been in the prison for 7 months. She was captured during a battle on planet Ivos when she was found hiding under a broken ship. Soldiers had dragged her out thinking she was just a refugee. They didn't know what she really was. Even Lyra herself wasn't sure anymore. Each day the guards brought her stale food and dirty water. She never spoke. She never looked them in the eye. She didn't scream when they kicked her. She didn't cry when they laughed at her. She waited. One night, everything changed. A human soldier named Dax was assigned to clean the lower prison halls. He didn't like the job. The smell was terrible. The prisoners looked broken, but Dax didn't complain. He was used to following orders. As he passed Lyra's cell, he paused. She was sitting in the same place as always, her head down, her arms still chained, but something felt different. The air was thick. It felt heavy, like before a thunderstorm. Dax frowned. "You all right in there?" he asked. No answer. He turned to walk away, but then stopped. There was a faint sound, not out loud but in his head. "Dax." He froze. He looked back at Lyra. She hadn't moved. Her eyes were still on the floor. He stepped closer. "Did you say something?" Silence. He turned again, thinking maybe he imagined it, but then, "You don't belong here either." Dax spun around. His heart pounded. What the hell? He stared through the bars. Lyra slowly lifted her head. For the first time, their eyes met. Her eyes were glowing faint blue. Dax stepped back in shock. "What are you?" Lyra tilted her head. She didn't speak with her mouth. The voice came again, straight into his mind. "You'll find out soon." Dax reported nothing that night. He didn't tell the other guards. He couldn't explain what happened. And deep inside, he didn't want to. He returned the next day. Lyra sat just as before, but now she watched him. Every move. Her glowing eyes seemed dim now, but still alive. "Why me?" Dax asked quietly. "Because you're not like them." He blinked. "I'm a soldier. I work here. But you still have a heart." Her voice was soft, calm, yet it made his skin crawl. She was not a normal prisoner. He began to wonder. Was she even a prisoner at all? That night, strange things happened in the prison. Doors unlocked without a key. Lights flickered. One of the guards claimed he heard voices in the walls. Another swore he saw a shadow move through a locked door. Everyone thought it was just stress. War made people tired, crazy, but Dax knew better. The next evening, Dax brought her real food, a sandwich. He passed it through the bars. She took it slowly, gently. Her fingers touched his hand. They were warm, too warm. "Thank you," she said. Her lips didn't move, but the words were clear in his mind. "You can speak?" he whispered. "Only when it matters." She took a bite, chewed quietly. "Who are you really?" Dax asked. She looked at the wall. "They think I'm nothing, a weak girl, but they're wrong." He leaned closer. "Then why are you here? Why let them lock you up?" She looked at him again. Her face was calm, but her voice was sharp like a knife. "Because one day soon something is going to happen, and when it does, I want to be right here." Dax felt a chill. "Why?" he asked. Lyra looked down at her chains. "Because when I break these, they'll know the truth." Dax left that night with his heart racing. Something powerful was trapped in that cell. Something waiting, and it had chosen him to witness it. Dax didn't sleep that night. He lay on his bunk in the dark barracks, staring at the ceiling. Around him, other soldiers snored, coughed, turned in their beds. But he stayed, still haunted by glowing blue eyes, that girl and Lyra. She spoke without sound. She touched his hand and it felt like fire. He kept hearing her words again and again. When I break these, they'll know the truth. He tried to tell himself it was a trick. A test, maybe. The army sometimes tested soldiers with strange assignments, but deep inside he knew this was something else. The next day, Dax couldn't resist. After duty, he took a quiet turn down the lower halls and slipped back to her cell. She was waiting. "You came back," she said, again, not with her mouth, straight into his mind. "You knew I would," Dax replied softly. Lyra stood now. She wasn't sitting like before. She was still chained, but taller than he remembered. Her silver-white hair hung around her shoulders, like threads of moonlight. Her eyes weren't glowing this time, but they watched him closely. "You're afraid," she said. "I'm not afraid of you," he answered. She smiled, but it was sad. "You should be." Dax looked around. No guards nearby. Just cold silence. He took a step closer. "You said something is coming." "What did you mean?" Lyra lowered her gaze. "Something dark. Something worse than war. I can feel it moving. Slowly. Like a storm." Dax frowned. "How do you know?" She raised her hands. The chains rattled. Her fingers curled in the air, like reaching for something unseen. "I hear the thoughts of dying planets," she whispered. "I feel the stars trembling." Dax stared at her. "What are you, Lyra?" She didn't answer at first. Then her voice came soft and deep inside his chest. "I was made, and then I was abandoned." Dax shook his head. "Made? By who?" She looked away. "They called themselves peacekeepers, scientists, warriors, thinkers. They wanted to create something powerful, something that could end wars, or start them. You were a weapon." "No," she said sharply. "I was the warning." Suddenly, alarms screamed through the prison. Red lights flashed. Soldiers ran past the hallway. Loudspeakers crackled with static. "Emergency breach, upper sector, all guards to stations." Dax's eyes widened. "What's happening?" Lyra turned toward the ceiling. She closed her eyes. Her face looked calm. Too calm. "It's early," she said softly. "I didn't think it would begin yet." Dax gripped the bars. "Lyra, what's coming?" She opened her eyes. This time they burned brighter than ever before. Pure blue, glowing like fire trapped in glass. And then she spoke, with her real voice. Not through thoughts, not through the mind, a voice like wind across ice echoing in the deepest halls. "The war is not the real danger." Dax froze. All around them, doors slammed shut. Lights blew out. Power surged. The air grew heavy, like gravity had doubled. Lyra's chains began to shake. "Stay back!" Dax shouted, but she didn't move toward him. She raised her hands again. The metal cuffs on her wrists began to glow red-hot. Steam rose. The wall behind her cracked, and then, with no touch, no sound, the chain snapped. The cell door unlocked by itself. Lyra stepped forward slowly, 1 foot at a time. Her bare feet touched the cold floor. Her hair floated slightly like a breeze was blowing only around her. Dax backed away, stunned. She stopped in front of him, just inches away. Her voice entered his mind once more. Calm. Cold. Final. "I never wanted to be this, but they made me, and now I must finish what they started." Dax swallowed hard. "What do you need from me?" She looked at him, really looked. Not fear, not loyalty, just, "Remember me." And with that she walked past him into the flashing red lights of the broken prison. She left no footprints, only silence. The prison was no longer under control. Sirens wailed. Emergency lights blinked red and white across the dark metal halls. Guards shouted. Systems failed. Cameras went black, doors opened and closed on their own, and something unseen moved through the lower decks. Some said it was sabotage. Others whispered, "It's her." Dax stood at the edge of the hallway holding his rifle tight, but it felt useless. His eyes kept glancing behind him, toward the corridor where Lyra had walked out just minutes ago. He had unlocked nothing. He had touched no buttons. Yet her cell door had opened, her chains had snapped, and her feet had not even touched the ground when she passed. "Dax!" a voice shouted from down the hall. It was Commander Rel. "You saw what happened? Where did the girl go?" Dax opened his mouth, but nothing came out. What could he say? "She's gone," he muttered. The commander narrowed his eyes. "Gone where?" Dax didn't answer. Suddenly, boom! A shockwave rattled the entire floor. The ground vibrated like thunder had struck inside the walls. The lights above them burst. Glass rained down. A guard nearby dropped his gun and ran. "Sector 9 just went dark," shouted someone on the radio. "Send drones now." But it was too late. Security drones entered Sector 9. Their footage streamed for just 4 seconds. A girl stood in the middle of the hallway, her arms glowing like soft blue fire. The drone's vision blurred. Systems overloaded. Every machine fell, fried from the inside. The footage ended with one last sound, a soft hum, followed by silence. Dax watched it on a nearby screen. It was her. She wasn't running. She wasn't hiding. She was walking, straight toward the main gate. And everything around her was dying. No weapons, no bullets, no sound. Just her. Back at the control center, the high command was panicking. Who is she? How did she get in here in the first place? She didn't get in, Dax said quietly. They turned to him. She was built here, or something like her was. He showed them the files he had found, the ones buried deep in the base archives. The ones marked, classified, terminated project, do not open. The project was called the Echo Seed, an attempt, 20 years, ago, to combine psychic energy with living DNA. The result, something that could connect to minds, move through machines, feel the pulse of planets. They created 6 subjects. 5 died. The 6th one vanished. Her name, Lyra, a prototype. 6. They thought she was dead. They were wrong. Outside the gates, Lyra stood quietly as soldiers surrounded her. One shouted, "Get on the ground!" She looked at them, weapons jammed. Their hands shook. Some soldiers collapsed without being touched, passed out from pressure in their heads like something had whispered their worst fears into their ears. She said nothing. She took one more step. The ground cracked beneath her. Then something strange happened. She stopped. She turned her head and looked toward the cameras, toward the watchers, toward Dax. A single word echoed through every speaker in the base. Remember. And then she vanished in a flash of light. No fire, no explosion, just gone. Only the cuffs remained behind, melted, but untouched by flame. That night, across the galaxy, a quiet message began to spread. Some said a weapon had escaped. Some said a ghost had walked through walls. Others said a myth had awakened. But those who had seen her, who had felt her power, they now whispered a different name. The Echo. Dax sat alone, staring at the melted chains he kept in his locker. He didn't sleep, he didn't speak. But deep inside, one truth was growing louder. She wasn't helpless. She never was. Whispers spread faster than bullets. A prison was crippled in under 5 minutes. Security drones melted mid-air. 50 armed guards collapsed without being touched. No alarms caught her. No cameras followed her. She simply disappeared. They called her a weapon. They called her a mistake. But soon, soldiers began to call her something else. The Ghost. Far from the ruined prison in the war-zone fields of Zarn Delta, a battle had just ended. The ground was covered in ash, tank remains, scattered helmets. The air smelled of metal and blood. A group of alien mercenaries searched for survivors. They carried plasma rifles and wore black bone armor. Then one of them paused. "Do you hear that?" the captain asked. The others stopped. There was no sound, no wind, no birds, nothing. Just silence. Too perfect. Then, a soft hum echoed through the ground, not through their ears but under their skin, in their bones. "What is that?" one shouted. Suddenly their helmets turned hot. Their radios screamed static. One mercenary dropped to his knees. "She's in my head," he cried, clutching his skull. The captain raised his weapon. "Spread out. Now." Too late. From the mist of dust and smoke, a figure walked slowly forward. Bare feet, white hair, eyes glowing faint blue. No armor, no gun. Just her. Back at Central Command, General Corps slammed his fist on the table. She was one prisoner. One. And now she's wiping out units without lifting a hand? A nervous officer replied, "Sir, she's not using weapons. She's using fear, memory, emotion. They say she sends images into soldiers' minds, personal ones." "What kind of images?" the general growled. The officer swallowed. "Their worst moments. Their greatest regrets. Things they've never told anyone." Silence. "And how is she doing this from hundreds of meters away?" No one had an answer. Dax watched the news reports. They didn't show her face. No one could capture it. But the survivors spoke. She walked through fire. It didn't touch her. She looked at me, and I saw my dead sister. She said nothing, but I remembered everything I wanted to forget. He sat alone in a dark corner of the base, holding the melted cuff from her prison chains. "Lyra," he whispered. "What are you becoming?" Elsewhere on the ruined world, a Vornaka rebel leader lay in hiding deep inside a collapsed bunker. His forces had been crushed by the Empire just days earlier. Only a few of his people remained. That night he woke suddenly. A shape stood at the entrance of the tunnel. Thin, still. The others aimed rifles, but they froze before firing. She stepped into the light. "You are not here to kill us?" the rebel asked. Her voice echoed gently in their minds. "No, I'm here to remind you." "Remind us of what?" She raised her hand, and a glowing memory played in the air. Her mother's face. Her people burning. A lab, screams, chains. I was made by those who believed they could control life. Now, I carry what they buried. The rebels fell silent. The leader stood. "Then what do you want?" She turned toward the stars. "Not war. But if war keeps chasing me, then it will know fear." Back on Earth's council, ship-high leaders debated behind glass tables. Do we send assassins? She's beyond that now. Then we hunt her down. She's not hiding. We are. One ambassador whispered what others feared to say. We didn't just create her. We awakened something older, something we tried to forget. Later, in a forest clearing on a moon colony, a little child saw a glowing woman watching the sky. He walked toward her, unafraid. "Are you an angel?" he asked. She smiled. "No," she said softly. "I'm what happens when they try to silence one voice for too long." She faded into the wind before his parents arrived. From battlefields to boardrooms, from leaders to orphans, one name now traveled across stars, not in fear, not in orders, not in files, but in whispers. The ghost walks again. They sent the best to hunt her, 12 elite soldiers, known across the systems as Shadow Unit 7. Each one a killer, each one trained to survive any war zone, any species, any threat. But none of them had ever hunted a myth. They were given her last known location, the fog-covered mountains of Zelkar 4. They brought heat sensors, AI drones, cloaking suits, and sonic weapons. "She's just one girl," their captain said. "Let's bring her in and finish this ghost story." They entered the mountains at sunrise. By nightfall, all contact was lost. Back at Military Control HQ, the generals watched the live feeds go dark, one by one. First, the drones stopped transmitting. Then the soldiers' heart monitors flatlined. But without signs of gunfire, no blood, no screams, just silence. Only one body was recovered. The soldier's face was frozen in fear, eyes wide open, lips parted like he had died mid-scream. But no sound ever came. They scanned his brain. It was intact, except for one strange detail. Every memory was gone, as if he had been erased from the inside. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, Dax sat at an old terminal staring at red flashing words. Shadow unit status unknown. He rubbed his eyes. They're going to keep sending people. They don't understand. He remembered her voice, her soft words. I never wanted to be this. He turned on the hidden file he stole from Command, Project Echo Seed. The last page of the report had just one line, buried in warning code. If Prototype 6 enters awareness mode, do not pursue. Do not engage. She will become what we fear most. A mirror. Dax whispered. A mirror of what? Back on Zelkar 4A merchant ship past the quiet mountains. Their scanners picked up something strange. In the valley below, 12 weapons lay, on the ground in a perfect circle. No blood, no armor, no bodies, only a message carved into stone beside them, written in 3 languages. You hunted me like prey. Now you know how it feels to vanish. Rumors exploded. Whispers turned to fear. Fear turned into silence. Command centers deleted her name from records. They told soldiers never to speak of her again. Some refused missions. Some quit the war altogether. One squadron mutinied when told to enter her last location. I'd rather face a plasma storm, their commander said. Storms don't crawl into your memories. In a secret base orbiting Darcy's Prime, a scientist watched an old video of her. It was her years ago as a child, barefoot, floating inside a glass tank. She smiled at the camera. The scientist remembered the day they first tested her power, and she cried once. The lights in the entire facility exploded. Another time she fell asleep. Everyone within 30 meters dreamed the same dream, of a world on fire. They shut her down, froze her, hid her. Now she was awake again. The scientist turned to the others and said, You all think she's killing people. You're wrong. They stared at him. She's showing them. She's opening their minds. And some minds can't survive what they see. Dax received a message one night. No name. No sender. Only 5 words. You still remember me, Dax? His hands trembled. He looked up at the stars through the window. She's watching, he whispered. Not as a prisoner. Not as prey. Not as a weapon. But as something else now. Something no one could chain again. Across dying planets and silent moons, soldiers stopped, searching. Mercenaries refused to take the job, because everyone knew the truth now. She wasn't hiding. She was waiting. The room was dark, lit only by the faint glow of old computer screens. Dax sat alone, fingers trembling as he scrolled through the files. Most were classified, buried deep in human archives. Years ago, they had tried to erase her from history, not just erase her life, but erase the very idea that she ever existed. She was called many things. Prototype 6. Failed experiment. Ghost. But in these files, Dax found her true name. Lyra. He read a secret report dated 200 years ago. It told a story no one wanted to hear. Lyra was born in a lab. Not like other babies. She was created, a fusion of human DNA and something alien, something ancient. The scientists wanted to build peace, a powerful weapon, or maybe both. But Lyra was different. She was more than their science. The experiment failed. She vanished. Some said she died. Others whispered she escaped. But all agreed. She was erased. Not by death. By forgetting. Dax leaned back and stared at the ceiling. He thought about her, the girl locked in chains, glowing with power, breaking free from prison walls without touching them. She was not just a weapon or a ghost. She was a living memory, a shadow the past could not hold. That night a message blinked on Dax's comm. Unknown sender. "Remember me," it said. Dax's breath caught. He opened the message. It was an old recording, crackling and faint. A child's voice sang softly. "They tried to erase me, but I am the echo. I am the seed, and I will bloom." The screen went dark. Dax knew then that the war was not just about soldiers or planets. It was about memory. It was about something they had buried deep and feared would rise again. Across the stars, whispers grew louder. They spoke of a girl who could not be killed, not because she was immortal, but because she was forgotten and remembered all at once. She was the myth that would not die. The final battle was ready. Armies gathered on the shattered plains of Varus 9. Soldiers from dozens of planets stood side by side, weapons raised and eyes fixed on the dark horizon. They waited for the myth to appear. Stories had grown wild. Some said she was a monster, others called her a savior, but no one really knew what to expect. The air was thick with tension. Every breath felt heavy. Then she came. Lyra stepped out of the shadows. Her silver hair flowed in the cold wind. Her eyes shone bright blue, glowing like stars. Her chains were gone, but her hands were calm. She did not carry weapons. She did not scream or shout. She walked slowly with quiet strength. Soldiers raised their guns. 1,000 weapons aimed at her, ready to fire, but Lyra raised a hand. A silence fell. No shots, no explosions. Her voice echoed, not in words, but inside their minds. "I do not want war." She paused, looking at the soldiers, not enemies, but humans, aliens, warriors tired of endless fighting. "I came to stop the fire, to end the pain, to remind you." Visions flashed in every mind of peaceful worlds, children laughing, hands reaching out in friendship. Tears formed. Hatred softened. One general stepped forward. "Why spare us?" he asked, his voice shaking. Lyra smiled softly. "Because mercy is stronger than any weapon. Because hope can burn brighter than any star. Because even myths can choose kindness." The soldiers lowered their weapons. The war stopped. No one cheered, but no one moved either. They simply listened. Years passed. Lyra vanished again, like a whisper in the wind. But her story lived on. In quiet moments, when the stars shine brightest, people tell her story. Not as a ghost, not as a weapon, but as a legend, a myth. The girl once called helpless, now called hope.